When you're standing in front of a circuit board and you're not quite sure whether the tool you're about to pick up will actually let you finish the job, that hesitation can turn a simple repair into a whole afternoon of second-guessing. I've been in that spot more than once, especially when the project is a mix of delicate surface mount parts and a few stubborn through-hole connections. That's why I wanted to sit down and talk through what it really feels like to work with the Weller WXD2N hand tools, beyond the glossy marketing copy, so you can decide if the price tag matches the everyday value you need. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's set the stage for the kind of soldering work most hobbyists and small shop technicians face. You probably have a basic soldering iron, a few tweezers, maybe a pair of cutters, and you're adding a new component here or fixing a frayed wire there. What you don't have is a cohesive set that's been designed to work together, with the same ergonomic feel and the same tolerance for the heat cycles you throw at it. That's the niche the WXD2N tries to fill, a top-of-the-line, hand tool collection that promises consistency across the board. If you're the type who already owns a handful of mismatched tools from different brands, you might wonder whether it's worth swapping them out for a unified set. The answer, in my view, hinges on two practical considerations: the frequency of your soldering tasks and the level of precision you need. For someone who builds a few Arduino projects a month, the incremental benefit of a matched set may feel marginal. But for a repair technician who sees dozens of boards a week, or a hobbyist who's moving into more intricate work like repairing vintage audio gear, the uniformity of the WXD2N can shave off a few seconds per joint, seconds that add up to less fatigue and fewer accidental slips. What makes the WXD2N feel versatile, as the product description claims, is the range of tools included. You get a precision tip holder, a set of interchangeable soldering tips, a pair of fine-point tweezers, a small cutter, and a few other accessories that most people would otherwise buy individually. Because they are all manufactured under the same Weller quality standards, the tips lock into the holder with a snugness that's consistent across the whole set. In practice, that means when you switch from a 0.5mm tip for delicate surface mount work to a larger 2mm tip for a heavy gauge wire, there's no wobble and no need to readjust your grip. I've found that small, but meaningful difference when I'm trying to solder a tiny resistor on a crowded board and then immediately need to move to a larger lead for a power connector. Now, no tool is perfect, and the WXD2N has a few trade-offs that are worth spelling out. The biggest practical weakness is the weight. Because the holder is built to be robust, it feels a bit heavier than the ultralight plastic alternatives you might see on a budget line. If you're used to a featherlight iron that you can hold for extended periods without any strain, the WXD2N will feel more substantial. For most users that's just a matter of getting used to the balance, but for someone with hand fatigue issues it could be a deal-breaker. Another point to consider is the price. It sits in the higher-end bracket of hand tool kits, which makes sense given the brand reputation, but it also means you are paying a premium for that consistency. If you're only soldering occasionally, the cost may not justify the marginal gains in ergonomics. Let's talk about who should actually buy this set. The sweet spot is a semi-professional who runs a small electronics workshop, a serious hobbyist who's moving beyond hobby-grade projects, or a student in an engineering program who needs reliable tools for lab work. Those users will benefit from the durability of the components, the consistent tip fit, and the fact that the whole kit is covered under a single brand warranty, simplifying any future service concerns. On the flip side, a casual DIYer who only ever does a few simple repairs a year, or someone who already has a set of high-quality tools from another brand that they are comfortable with, will probably find the WXD2N to be overkill. In terms of daily usability, the set shines when you're doing mix-type work. Picture yourself soldering a microcontroller onto a breakout board. You start with a fine tip for the tiny pads, then reach for the tweezers to hold the component steady, and finish by clipping excess leads with the cutter without having to rummage through a drawer for the right piece. That flow is exactly what the WXD2N is built to support. I've also noticed that the tips retain their shape longer than cheaper alternatives, which translates to fewer tip replacements over time, something that can be a hidden cost saver. The hidden trade-off, though, is that the set doesn't include a dedicated temperature controller. The WXD2N is strictly a hand tool.